Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar series, Transforming the Future of Land Management. My name is Matthew Morris. I'm a land steward with the Duchy of Cornwall, and I'm going to be your host today, along with Tim Hopkin, who is the founder of the Land app. So why we're here? Well, many of you already know Tim already, and he's passionate about the land management sector, and he really gets natural capital. On my side, His Royal Highness has led the way in encouraging sustainable farming practices for many years. And at the Duchy, we're midway through a huge natural capital appraisal. But we're by no means alone in that passion for natural capital and land management generally. Tim and I felt that it was important to keep the momentum going, even in the current crisis. We are at a critical time in terms of policy development for land management. And perhaps we're in the middle of a wider recognition amongst the British public about the importance of agriculture. Land management is, of course, a constant, and we thought we'd put our newly found digital skills to the test, well, at least my newly found skills, and reach out across the sector to keep the debate alive. Things have escalated somewhat. What we thought might be a few short sessions is now an 11-episode series, and today we've got over 500 attendees joining us from all areas of the land management sector across the UK. We've got private estates, government agencies, utilities, charities and private business, and welcome to you all. We also have a great speaker lineup over the next 11 weeks, and I'd like to thank each and every one of those people for volunteering, so thank you. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. You can hopefully all see and hear me. I'll shortly hand over to Tim, who will introduce our first guest speakers. During the session today, there'll be an element of interaction with a live poll and questions that will be asked to answer. And this will really help us build a picture of what the sector really thinks. So please do take part. You'll also be able to log your questions to the speakers, and I'll help run that Q&A towards the end of the session. This is our first episode, and we may have some technical issues, which hopefully will not all be caused by me. If we do, please bear with us, and you will be able to watch all the presentations again by visiting our website. Tim, I'll hand over to you.
Brilliant, Matthew. Thank you very much for the introduction. So just a quick hello from me. Yeah, so I'm Tim Hopkin, founder of the Land app, and it's a real pleasure to be putting this series on over the next 11 weeks with Matthew and all of you lot. Just to quickly kick off this today, what we thought we would do is a quick interactive survey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out to all of you through the chat function a link. So I'm going to do that right now. And if all of you could open that up, so you might need to copy the whole thing and paste it and open it up in a web browser. And I'm going to now change my screen so you can see this now. This is the first time we've done it. Hopefully it all works fine. Give it a second, and we're going to be using this a couple more times today. So for those, hopefully you've all seen in the chat function that link. As I say, if you can either click that, there you go. Here come the first answers for those that are watching. And you should all be able to answer as many times as you want. So please feel free to keep on bringing more questions, more answers in. And this is really going to start forming the backbone of the rest of the 11-part series. So we really want this to be something. Elms, very strong with elms. Natural capital or elms is very strong. Management, more information on elms. Seeing a bit of a trend here. Policy, land management. Let's get this out of the way so I can read them all. Brilliant. Understanding, very clear. For those that can't, let me just have a quick look at the chat, just to make sure everyone's okay. Oh, so everyone just I can see what people are answering in the chat function. Scoop out that link if you possibly can and put it into a browser and answer in there. That will bring all the information back through here. And just so you know, all of this information we're capturing here is all going to be made available in a blog afterwards. Elms, natural capital, brilliant. Guys, this is absolutely brilliant. Woodland, I can see food, different thinking, regenerative, farming, woodland, tenancies, opportunities. Absolutely brilliant. Well, Matthew, I think this is really going to start forming a bit of a backbone of a conversation for the next few weeks. Guys, that's absolutely brilliant. I'm just going to pause that. 100 and 20. Oh God, they're all still coming in. I'll keep it going a little longer, I suppose. Fantastic. Great. For those who aren't seeing the chat function, see if you can just scoop out that link and paste it into a browser and answer in there. Brilliant, guys. Well, what are we at? 130 answers now. I think we'll take a bit of a pause there. Oh, 132, they still come. Right, I'm going to stop that one. There we are. Oh, all of those answers will be coming out in a blog afterwards. And yeah, we'll hopefully have that as a real core theme of everything that we're looking to do over the next few weeks. Brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for that. And as I say, we're going to be doing a couple more of those afterwards as well. So get ready to answer those different questions coming up. Thank you. So that's a great start. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly introduce our two speakers today. First of all, we have Jenny Phelps from PWAG Southwest. I'm sure many of you have seen Jenny present over the last couple of years. Jenny's really leading a huge amount on the conversation about ELMS and how farm advisors can support best practice. And her talk today is titled Creating a Baseline and Mechanism for Investment for Natural Capital Recovery and Sustainable Food Production. So Jenny, without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to stop sharing. Please do start sharing on your side.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me. I'm just sharing my screen now. Hopefully you can see that.
Not just at the moment, Jen. Yeah, it's just loading up now. Brilliant. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm just hoping it will go full screen. Okay, thank you ever so much, everyone, for inviting me to talk today. It's a huge privilege, I can't tell you, and all the work that we do is, you know, a huge team effort, particularly my team, for all the partners. So I hope I do them proud in presenting today all of the work that we've been doing. So over the last 15 years, we've been involved with many different projects and pilots and a huge partnership of organisations working to try and answer some of the questions that were on the Slido, right the way through from the catchment-based approach to the payment ecosystem services pilot that we did in 2013. You know, we've done projects that are now international case studies of building resilience for farmers, working with communities. Really passionate about the facilitation funding groups of farmers. We now run 4 of those. And we've obviously also been doing the natural management pilots. And most recently, ELMS, which has been a fantastic opportunity, which I hope to share with you today. And we're really lucky to link into some really fantastic science institutions as well, through Reading University and CH and Rothamsted as part of some of the research projects doing our work. So we hope that what we're showing you has got a good scientific foundation and a basis for a huge amount of work. All of what we do is based around a framework that we developed a long time ago now, 2004, which is integrated local delivery. And this came from a heritage lottery project that I was involved with, because what we found was that what was missing from the countryside was local communities and farmers being valued for their knowledge, for their contribution to being able to deliver all the challenges that we face and all the opportunities that there are out there. And there seem to be multiple different stakeholders who had lots of single issue agendas, and none of those seem to be able to be joined together very easily. Creates this web of confusion for people living on the ground as to how to actually act and take action. And this, at the moment, particularly with climate emergencies, seems to be a really important thing. People want to act. And what we hope is we'll show how this framework will enable not only all the partners to deliver strategically together, but also how people can be valued as local communities for their contribution, and to help build strong socio-economic communities, particularly in the light of the economic challenges we may face going forward from coronavirus. So as part of our ELMS trial, we were trying to build on what we'd already learned and already had researched over many years, but we felt that it was really important to try and create a baseline for a new way of thinking. So our ELMS trial was a farmer-led trial, building on all the projects that are all farmer-led trials that we've done here in the Cotswolds. And it was really about developing a natural capital mapping tool that enabled us to create an opportunity from which investment and funding and natural capital recovery could flow. And obviously we were partners with him in the Land Map and Ordnance Survey, and that's given us a huge opportunity to have the resource to further develop that. The other thing we wanted to show was that none of the join-up, none of this happens, and none of the opportunity is easily understood without specialist advisors that can actually not only value the contribution of everyone else and signpost to that connectivity, but can actually create those opportunities and realise those opportunities at a local level. And what we hope to show is how they can blend finance effectively to be able to bring that opportunity into the one world that we have. There may be multiple strategies, but there's only, there's one land, one world that we can actually invest in, and that's what needs to be done in a strategic way. So what we've been trying to do is to work very closely with DEFRA and all the different DEFRA teams and answer some of their questions around what does a land management plan look like, what does advice look like, and the innovative mechanisms and all the things you can see on the screen, and actually fit this within their aspiration. And what we've seen so far on the ELMS Advisory Board in relation to the development potentially of Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. And we see some real opportunities here. It's slightly inverse to the way that it's currently thinking, which we hope will present a good case for today. So our aim is to take you today, in 15 minutes, to rattle through what we see as being this huge opportunity where you have a mechanism that's simple, forward-facing to farmers, but we can collate and verify data with farmers and communities, valuing their knowledge that can actually enable us to understand how their land is prioritised. And then we can take that data we're using UK habitat mapping, which I'll explain briefly, and actually create collaboration across the landscapes to understand the ecosystem services that those habitats provide, and then collate a baseline for our counties to be able to deliver net gain and multiple blended finances through integrated partnership working. And again, as I say, create this opportunity to deliver the 25-year environment plan and the United Nations Sustainability Goals by enabling a sort of co-management, co-investment in the land that we all own and love. So we were trying to demonstrate that there's an opportunity for us all to be able to act on climate change and become resilient. And it's really about demonstrating and valuing the role of farmers and farmland and food communities and making sure that that connectivity is there. And our trial included 20 farmers, 30 control farmers, 5 communities and 10 stakeholders. And it was a very short, sharp trial over 6 months. We all worked very hard, and building on the project that we'd run for nearly 7 years, the Waterwood Integrated Local Delivery Project, which is now an international case study. So the ambition was to work with Tim at Land App and Ordnance Survey to actually start to look at natural capital mapping, building on the work that we did for Duchy for 2 years, and actually start to see, could we actually streamline and create a mechanism that will be able to be transferable within to ELM. And as I said, we decided to use UK habitat mapping, and I'll try and explain the reasons for that. And what it did enable us to do was enable us to go out on farms and verify data with farmers, so that we can actually be able to make sure we have accurate information on the state of our environment in which the people who live there can directly contribute towards. So UK habitat mapping is a new way of classifying habitats that's been developed by some very clever people at Accountability and CEH, and actually combines all the different ways that we currently assess the environment. So it combines and can translate from those different ways that we assess the land in the past. And that's something we'll talk a bit more about later on. But what's really clever about it is that it's hierarchical, so that it has a simple initial stage where you can actually classify the habitat anybody could go out and classify a grassland or a woodland, which is the first level. But actually, as you sequentially go down through the more detail that it offers you, then you can actually start to build a much stronger picture towards the different types of habitats and the way that they're managed. And the reason why we do this is because we understand already from previous work that's been done on ecosystem services that actually we know that there's a functionality to all the different land use types, and it enables us to be able to start to create that platform for natural capital recovery. And we particularly want to use ecosystem services rather than just natural capital, because that includes the essential role of food and fibre and provisioning. And our aspiration is that if we're able to do so, that with the support of CH and Rothamsted and the Agland project, we may be able to attribute function to every single habitat type and every single management code. So through the UK habitat mapping, you basically then start to build the picture with sequential letters that give you more information based around simple code. So to level 2, you can then start to work out what type of grassland it might be, what type of woodland it might be. And the good thing about this system is that it includes cropland and urban, which means that we can map everywhere, not just the habitats that we know and love, but every piece of land cover can have an attribution from the function. And so if you end up with, sort of like we were saying, you've got an opportunity for other advisors and the specialists and ecologists to be able to help in that, but some farmers will be able to classify land themselves, but they may need some assistance. So you've got a simple code where you can actually start to go from woodland to defining its habitat type. We're also able to assess the arable options, the arable lands, and you can see on the right-hand side, the coding enables us to be able to take the detailed data of what is actually happening on that land and map it through the land map, which Tim will be able to talk to you about later, to be able to show you exactly what's on that land. And as I say, we're able to attribute that and convert that from existing countryside stewardship and basic payment schemes. And what we can do then, and why it's so clever, is it then starts to be able to attribute management function to those different habitat types. So you can start to carry on further down your level of assessment to actually create context within that habitat. And again, the ambition is that we can start to attribute function to those. It also enables us to be able to attribute linear features, walls and wet ditches, to create a very complex opportunity for mapping the very detail of what the land is actually doing, which includes the way that it's managed and the matrices based around 5 metre squares of habitat type. But where it's particularly clever is that these simple codes create us an opportunity to not only collect a huge amount of data in a small linear equation, but actually we can then start to analyse those functions across the landscape. And in our trial, we've basically been able to summarise what we've been doing through this. So there is now a full report that's available for you to see. So what you end up with is this wonderful UK habitat map. This is Henry Robinson, Alex Robinson is probably on their call. And what we're really thinking is that under Tier 1, that this submission, this verification of data, should really be rewarded as a baseline for farmers to the equivalent of basic payment scheme of at least £150 a hectare that could feed into the verification of local nature recovery strategies and nature recovery networks. And that this is something that we think that all farmers could do an annual submission, and obviously that part of that payment might be to help them protect soil and water and all the things that Tier 1 aspires to as well. Where the project has been really brilliant is we've been able to feed our development of thinking around UK habitat mapping into the Land App, and Tim and the developers and designers at Ordnance Survey have been able to help us do that. And so we can work with our trial farmers to convert our BPS and our CS directly into UK Hab for that. And as I say, what we learned was that was a much simpler and more rewarding process for the farmers if they were given the support of advice to be able to do that. And this graph shows the success of the ability of farmers to be able to do that mapping with advice on the left and without the poor control farmers on the right. So the aspiration then is, and this is our Ernest Cook Trust farmers, is that you then start to create a Tier 2 opportunity where, building on the success of the catchment-based approach and the facilitation funds, that Tier 2 enables you, particularly through UK Hab mapping and through the Land App, farmers can share their Hab maps with their neighbours, and you can start to create the collaboration across the landscape. And what that then enables us to do is to create water bodies and catchments and landscapes where we can start to attribute function and run analysis against those data gaps to see whether or not we've got a good quality for pollinators, or we've got areas of hedgerow we might want to restore. It might create opportunity mappings for woodland planting and grassland restoration, all different types of habitat types. But it's a real opportunity for us to create that baseline. So what we've done is we want to show how it builds on our work to help with the water companies, so that we are actually able to help farmers understand and contextualise each field parcel that they have and the rural communities to be able to work out the green spaces and the urban environments, and actually work out how we can attribute function in a wider context and all those different strategic priorities possibly in the global context of each field parcel. So we want to link this directly. We feel that the real opportunity here is to link this into the delivery of 25-year environment plan and the United Nations Sustainability Goals, and communities to be able to become resilient by understanding how they can work more closely with farmers to be able to build that resilience both for food, water, energy, habitat restoration, water quality, air quality. And actually what this mapping does is enables us to be able to create that sort of review and refresh of an annual submission of how the land and the environment is coping in relation to climate change and the provisioning and regulating cultural services we need it to supply. And we create opportunity data points that we are able to share. You can't quite see on this map, but there is more you can delve down into detail of this, and the farmers and communities are invited to create opportunity maps that we then share with our catchment partnerships and local nature partnerships to enable kind of coordinated action to be able to create mitigations and opportunities for a healthy, sustainable environment to underpin economic growth. So this builds directly on our work that we've been doing since 2013 with the Wild Project, which creates a template for farmers and communities to work together along water bodies. The red dots are the data sets that I was suggesting. And we've got some really good examples of how farmers have made real benefits to their communities by reducing flooding and providing local food and all those things. And actually we can source and share that data, which again, Land App really helps us to do, because we can link directly the strategic objectives and duties and priorities of all the different public and private and third sector organisations directly attributing to the assets and issues that the farmers and communities find within their community. One of the things that we've been really focusing on is infrastructure, where there's infrastructure that's actually making flooding, such as road verges being, channeling water down into the central villages, and foul infrastructure being impacted by surface waters on roads and sewage surcharging into rivers. And quite often we can find there's multiple simple issues that could be resolved rather than big, huge investments in flooding. Sometimes it's a lost ditch, or it's some very old historic way that we managed the land around our communities, which has been lost and forgotten. And this enables the culture of our communities to help in the learning and collating of that data. And as I said, this is all part of now an international case study that has a toolkit through the International European Environmental Programme, which is available for people. So what we want to do is to show how this would fit. We want ELMS to be more than just an agri-environment scheme. It needs to be able to have a justification to replace the value of basic payment scheme to support and sustain our farm businesses and our countryside, and create mechanisms where grasslands and habitats can actually be funded for the ecosystem services that they provide for all of us. And as part of the ambition to produce nature recovery networks at a county level is happening quite a lot at the moment, and also may come as a duty under the Environment Act for local authorities to recover local nature recovery strategies. But what we learned through our trial is that none of this data is verified, that it's all been scraped from phase 1 surveys or national priority habitat inventories or local wildlife sites, or all the different things that we've talked about. And actually we can translate all of those into a UK habitat map that effectively is a non-verified UK habitat map. But that gives us a real opportunity for the farmers and communities to pull that map into the Land App as a non-verified local nature recovery strategy, and actually put in their submission and be paid for their submission to be able to quantify and qualify the exact state of the environment, and also hopefully to add the species data that many of our farmers and communities know is there, but often it goes unrecorded. What it also does is gives us an opportunity to understand how to blend finance, how to be able to facilitate as advisors this opportunity for natural capital to be recovered not only by social capital, that's the people that live in a locality, but by net gain coming from planning mitigations, which we're already delivering, from water companies and payments for ecosystem services and natural flood management, and obviously this huge opportunity of carbon and carbon trading and green finance and agri-tech. But what we're really, really keen for is that this trading becomes something that is part of the closed circle. And one of the things that we've recently learned is that we feel that there's a real opportunity for that funding to be held at a county level, as it is an example in Oxfordshire, where that funding effectively is held in a charitable trust that is then issued out in alignment with supporting farmers and communities, in line with the shared strategy in which the farmers and communities have been part of the ambition in these local nature recovery strategies, and that this is a not-for-profit or charitable trust that then enables the investment that's coming from maybe climate emergency funding or carbon trading or all these other things can be conduited in a way that is structured and beneficial, and there's no profiteering, and it's all above board and well managed. And Nina, my final slide, sorry, I appreciate it's a lot of information. Please do get in touch if I can ever explain it in more detail. But basically what we're trying to understand is that there needs to be structure in a complex world, that we want to show a system by which we can all take action in a coordinated way, whatever role we play, in whatever part of our lives we play it. So as local people, as communities, as farmers, as commoners, we can actually all manage and be involved in the piece of land that we know and love, and that we can feed that information through to strategic partnerships that are through catchments and facilitation fund groups, but up to a county level, so that state of the environment can be a recognised actual mitigation for encouraging sustainable development and sustainable food production, which is integral to our success and survival going forward with climate change. And I'm really delighted that we're now working directly with our sustainable food strategy for Gloucestershire, so we're directly making sure that this platform very much integrates food. So just to say, hopefully that sort of sums up all of the sort of like the rather complex slide that I showed you in the beginning. We've put in all the links to the work that we've been doing. It basically is trying to address those issues of making it simple, forward-facing for farmers who wish it to be. Some of our farmers are very interested in the complexity and contribution, and then effectively showing how that we can analyse the information and create annual plans and feed that data through to create a platform for collaboration and payments that should benefit all of us. So thank you very much for allowing me to present our work today. Thank you.
Brilliant, Jenny. Thank you so much for a very comprehensive run through. And I'm conscious, everyone, that was probably a lot of content to take in. So just remember that all of this is being recorded, and after this session, you'll all be emailed with the links to get back into the video recording. So don't feel like you have to take notes. Another quick little reminder, please do ask your questions through the Q&A function, which is separate to the chat, because it's the Q&A that Matthew will then use at the end to do the 15-minute Q&A session that we have planned. So please do ask questions that you want to have asked to the panelists there, please. Thank you. So next we have Adele Jones from the Sustainable Food Trust, and Adele is going to be speaking today on harmonizing the way we measure on-farm sustainability. So Adele, over to you.
Need to unmute myself before I share my screen. Let's do that again.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tim. And just to say at the start of this, thank you everyone for joining. It's fantastic to see 350 or so people on this call. I think Tim and I started speaking about this webinar meeting about 10 days ago now, so it's amazing to see it up and running so quickly. And I think if there's one positive thing that can come out of this strange situation we find ourselves in, it's this kind of virtual information sharing. So thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Tim, for putting this together. So just to introduce myself, I'm Adele Jones. I'm head of programs at the Sustainable Food Trust. The Sustainable Food Trust, for those who don't know, is a small UK-based charity. We work internationally to try and unlock the barriers which are currently preventing a more mainstream transition to sustainable food and farming systems. And today I'm going to speak to you about the need for harmonized metrics from an on-farm perspective. So there's lots of farmers and land managers and estate managers on the webinar, it seems, which is fantastic. And I'm sure many of you can sympathize with the amount of audits that you guys might have to do each year as farmers and land managers. Similarly, there's lots of us, or all of us, who go to the supermarket or the shops to buy food. And again, we're kind of bombarded with different labels and different kind of marketing things, which, to be completely honest, I'm not sure any of us, even myself who spends my time thinking about this sort of stuff, truly understands. So I think there's over 1,000 different sustainability assessments and labels worldwide. I think in the UK there's over 100, probably much more than that. So there's a real need to kind of rationalise this system. And this is something that the Sustainable Food Trust has been thinking about for the last 5 years or so. And we sat down with a group of farmers about probably almost 5 years ago now, and said, predating all the Brexit conversations, and just said to them, look, where are you supplying information to each year? How much does it overlap? And is it at all useful to you in terms of the day-to-day decision making on farms around sustainability, and defining sustainability in this sense as economic, environmental and societal sort of enhancement and resilience on farms. So we posed that question to the working group of farmers that we sat down with, which was a very kind of broad church group of farmers from across the country, and the resounding answer was no. The information wasn't useful to them, and it wasn't helping them make decisions about their farm businesses. So we thought, okay, this is a bit mad, and we did a gap analysis of some of the sustainability assessment tools alongside the certification schemes that those farmers were involved with, and we found that about 65 to 70% of the data totally overlapped. And it's probably higher actually, but because many of the questions, as you probably all know, within certification, for example, are quite qualitative, it's quite difficult to kind of map those questions exactly onto one another and map the answers onto one another. So actually it's probably around 75% overlap, which we just thought was mad. And so we started discussing this idea of, okay, what would a harmonized framework for on-farm sustainability look like? Who should lead it? And from our point of view, that should be the farmers. The farming industry should lead this. And what would the benefits be? So whilst thinking about it, we thought, well, for farmers, obviously, to monitor continuous environmental, social and economic performance year on year. For governments to assess, design and monitor the impact of future farm support schemes. For food companies to make better purchasing decisions, and then finally for citizens to be able to kind of better understand the relative sustainability of products that they are purchasing, so that they can kind of vote with their buying power and become part of this solution to helping create a better business case for sustainable production. And we really, when thinking about these benefits and thinking about the need for a harmonized framework of on-farm sustainability measures, we thought, well, what's a kind of analogous situation here? And we thought about the financial accounting standards. And it's not a perfect analogy, because in many ways it's too simplistic. But what the financial accounting standards and framework provide, which is set by an independent body, is a common sort of set of terminology and practices upon which all different auditing companies, accountants around the world can use to monitor financial accounts. It means that if you're a small company or a very large company, wherever you are in the world, you can make meaningful comparisons about the financial information that you are accounting for. Whilst at the same time, having one framework for financial accounting does not mean that you just have one company which does the accounting. There's a whole diversity of different, the big four management consultancies, accountants all over the world, software companies. It means that there's multiple different people accounting for financial information, but because there's this one resounding framework, it just brings the whole thing together, and it means that everyone's working towards the same goal. And we sort of thought, okay, well, what does that look like for farming? And again, posed that question to the farmers we were working with, looked at all the information they're currently collecting and supplying to different people, and came up with this quite sort of crude sort of framework of assessment, which here is represented as 10 categories of assessment, from productivity and profitability, which is obviously paramount. If you are a farm business owner or tenant, you want to make sure you're making money, as well as soil health, water quality, plant and crop husbandry, livestock management, and also social and cultural issues as well. And so, as you can imagine, when we came up with these 10 categories, there was quite a exhaustive list of different metrics and indicators which we could put underneath all of those. And so we challenged ourselves as a group, and this again was something that took kind of 2 years, a process that took about 2 years of having multiple meetings about this. We challenged ourselves to try and come up with 3 key metrics and indicators under each of the 10 or 11 categories here in this table. And I realise it's going to be hard for everyone to take this in now, so I'm happy to share it with anyone who's interested after this webinar. But this is a table of metrics and indicators which has been 100% led by a group of farmers in terms of development, and it doesn't reinvent the wheel. It takes the best of what they are doing currently, and also, obviously incorporating new research and science and measuring techniques as they become available. So we have been testing this framework over the last 3 or 4 years as it's been developing, and those tests have helped continue to refine the metrics and indicators included within it. And we've been taking a whole farm approach, so really trying to measure all these things on any one farm at a certain time, and then kind of using it to help farmers make decisions about, if you tweak your soil health, if you do something which improves your soil health, what impact does that have on your productivity? What impact does that have on your biodiversity? And so on. So you're not thinking about any of these issues in silo. You're thinking about how they interact with one another, and therefore how you can kind of improve the health of your system as a whole each year. Importantly, what we haven't tried to do here is create another assessment, because there is so many of those out there already, as I explained earlier. So what we thought was, if there was one harmonized framework, which as an industry we could all agree collectively that this is what we should all be working towards, and then potentially there could be kind of one integrated audit that farmers do each year, which rather than requires information to be collected in each of these categories, again, it takes information that farmers are already collecting for various places and slots them into a framework of assessment, basically, whether that's your Soil Association organic audit or your RSPCA assured audit for animal welfare, or even things like your GWCT big farmland bird count. The more information that can be plugged into a kind of central space that farmers can use as a management tool, the better. And then, from that, this information and all these various aspects of on-farm sustainability could be used by DEFRA's ELM team in order to make decisions about funding for public goods. So building on that, we are, the Sustainable Food Trust is one of the ELM test and trial organisations. We started our test and trial back in November. We've been holding a series of farm workshops to further refine the framework of metrics. And we've now got to the point where we are about to start testing it on farm to, again, just, rather than getting too worried about the results, just thinking about how we can use the on-farm tests to further refine the metrics and indicators that farmers feel are most useful and meaningful to them on the farm, and help them make better decisions each year. So we were about to start that a few weeks ago. Obviously, plans have changed slightly. We can't go to the farms to do the tests anymore, but what we can do is do it over Zoom. So as Matthew said, this is an opportunity to refine our technological skills. And so in itself, doing a farm assessment over Zoom is going to be an interesting one, but I think it will be quite enlightening, actually, to see how easy it is or not. So those are starting next week, which is really exciting. We've got, there's actually more dots to be added now. We've got about 25 to 30 farms across England, which we're going to be testing the framework on to get their feedback on the metrics and indicators. And yeah, so that should be done in the next 3 months, basically. And keep an eye out on our website. As those reports come in, we're going to be posting regular updates on those farm trials as we get them through. And this is a slightly broader point, which I wanted to mention, which links to our ELM trial, but it is slightly broader. So I spent a year working for DEFRA last year for 12 months, which was a really fascinating experience. I learned a lot. It gave me a lot of insights into how things work in the kind of belly of the beast, as it were. One of the things which did really stand out to me was quite how siloized these different teams within DEFRA are. So we've got the 25-year environment plan, environmental land management, the new regulatory regime for farming, we've got enhanced animal welfare standards, and then kind of quite apart from all that, we've got nutrition and public health. And DEFRA is not alone in this. I think it's quite natural in a way for government departments to go into these kind of siloized groups because it's easier to deliver. But it did really worry me from this perspective of multiple different, farm audits and farmers under pressure to do lots of assessments each year, that even from DEFRA themselves, there could be 3 or 4 different ways of measuring farm sustainability going forward, from ELM, from the new regulatory regime, from animal welfare, and even from the 25-year environment plan. And actually what's really needed is a kind of single approach, which, if DEFRA could harmonise their thinking and their indicators that they are developing, so that individual farm information can be scaled up to catchment and regional and national, as Jenny was saying in her presentation, it would make far more sense and make everyone's lives much easier. And at the same time, hopefully it would mean that there would be one way of communicating the benefits that farmers provide to the public, who are equally kind of confused about where their money as taxpayers is going and how well it's being spent. I just wanted to touch on the Welsh Government, because we're not just working with DEFRA here, we're working with the devolved nations as well. The Welsh Government has actually committed to introducing an annual sustainability audit on farms, which is what we are suggesting to DEFRA they should do as part of our ELM trial. So the objective of our ELM trial is to consider whether an annual farm sustainability audit could be used as a mechanism for farmers understanding their progress against achieving the outcomes they agree with DEFRA that they will deliver through ELM. So we've been speaking about this idea to the Welsh Government as well, and they have committed to introducing what they are calling the Farm Sustainability Review, which will be an annual farm assessment that every farmer in Wales will complete in order to gain access to their new sustainable farming scheme, which is really exciting. This is a really exciting project, and in many ways I think the Welsh Government is slightly further ahead in their thinking in terms of how kind of environmental land management can integrate within farming. And I think that's a really important point. I think actually the sustainable farming scheme is a much better name than ELM, because ELM is restricted to just thinking about the environment, and actually we should really be thinking about a whole farm approach to future support. So I think the sustainable farming scheme encompasses that, and with the Farm Sustainability Review as part of that scheme, I think it could be really strong. So watch this space with the Welsh Government. This is just a scan of Farmers Guardian last week, which hopefully some of you might have seen. This is a profile of our work, which was brilliant. It sort of explained how DEFRA could use the metrics. There was some comments in there from Sainsbury's and Nestle and the NFU, and also a perspective about how it could be used from a trading standpoint as a kind of harmonized framework of metrics. And that's the point I wanted to end on, actually. There's obviously a part of this, I mentioned at the beginning, that consumers are equally confused about what all the different labels on food products mean. And we think this is not something we've done a huge amount of work looking at, but we certainly think it's a really interesting idea to consider whether there might be an opportunity to have a harmonized sort of label on food products with a number of indicators which consumers easily can kind of recognize and understand. Kind of not necessarily replacing the farm assurance schemes, because I think they're there for a reason and consumers trust them in some cases. But I think there's a need for, particularly young people now wanting to know more about their food and where it comes from. So I think there's a really interesting opportunity here to communicate some of the benefits that farmers will be delivering, hopefully through ELM and through the Sustainable Farming Scheme in Wales. Why not use that information and communicate it outwards on food products? And you'll notice here that these carrots have a little dollar sign on them, and that was purposeful because, as I mentioned, I think it would be really interesting if we could, if we could have the same label on products in the US and all around the world, that we could then kind of use as a trading platform, basically for making sure that produce is being traded on kind of equal standards on sustainability. So yeah, that's me. That's everything, I think. So thank you, everyone. Look forward to hopefully having some time to answer some questions at the end.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Adele. Again, incredibly comprehensive overview of kind of the direction of travel for the sector and some of the things we need to be putting in place. So thank you so much for that. Right, as I promised earlier, we're about to do, I'm just going to share my screen again. we're just going to do another survey. So both Jenny and Adele have a question that they would like everyone to answer. So first, I'm going to do Jenny's question. So it's going to come through into the. Let me just quickly open the chat. So here we go. As before, everybody, if you wouldn't mind just quickly, if you wouldn't mind just copying that into your browser and just start answering the questions, and let's see what starts coming in. So the question is, what do we need society to value most from good land management? So hopefully everyone's able to open the link through the chat function. Okay, brilliant, here they start coming. So sustainability, soil health. So just a reminder, the question is, what do we need society to value most from good land management? And you can all answer this as many times as you want. So please get everything out of your head and really, yeah, add it all into here because it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, sustainability, biodiversity is huge. Food, soil health, food security. Yeah, never has that been more important. Nature, welfare. Okay, 83, 87. We had 140 votes in the last one. Let's keep adding more and more and more. See what we can get in here. Biodiversity is coming up to the top. Hopefully you can all see my screen and see these coming in yourselves. Food, biodiversity is really very high. Soil health. Brilliant. 131, right. I'll stop it when it beats the other one, 141. A few more answers. Here we go, 144. Right, better pause that. Deactivate poll. Right, that hopefully has stopped on your side. I'm now going to transition to Adele's question. So let me just quickly start that and turn it into presenter mode. And let me get that across to you now. So here we are in the chat function. Again, please do use the link and then open the link up in your Chrome extension, or sorry, into your browser and answer there. It's only through there that the questions will pop up. So here is Adele's question: what sustainability indicator would you be most relevant, interested to see on food products? So what sustainability indicator would you be most interested to see on food products? So carbon footprint, water, soil health, water use. Okay, food miles, interesting. Food miles is really popping up to the top. Water, God blimey, carbon footprint. Yeah, just a reminder for those that are answering in the chat function, unfortunately, none of those answers will come through into here. Please use the link that I've sent through, and that will then open up in a browser, and then you can answer the question, and then it'll filter through into Slido. Food miles, carbon. Adele, I hope you're taking note of all this. Again, everyone, all of this is going to be captured and made available afterwards. So, oh, yeah, we've got a lot of answers now. Brilliant. Food miles are starting to beat carbon footprint. 143 answers. Fantastic. Give you a little bit longer for those who are taking a little longer to get the link opened in their browser. 153 food miles. Brilliant. Fantastic. Great. I will. Oh, there we go. Oh, hopefully I can actually stop this. There we are. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Gosh, a lot of answers there. Fantastic. Well, hopefully those answers, as well as the questions that you're sending in, will give a very strong Q&A session shortly. So thank you so much for your contribution. Lastly, we're just going to quickly try and tie a few things together through a little quick demonstration of the Land app. So as Matthew alluded to at the beginning, so the Land app we set up about 4 years ago. It's an easy-to-use, free digital mapping platform providing you full access to the authoritative data to manage land and assets. So I'm just going to quickly run through a few key workflows here. So firstly, here's the Land app. It's, I say, jump onto landapp.com, find it through my LinkedIn profile, whatever it might be, and you can create a free account, which we also provide in-app support for free as well. So really here to help you make the most out of it. I'm going to put in here webinar demo 9.4, create an empty map. So firstly, just checking in on time. So we are slightly behind schedule. I'll try and be quick. So firstly, you can easily create these new maps. you can import the RPA data through this 3-step process. I actually have already downloaded the data, so I'm just going to import it directly into here. There we are, land cover with hedge data. Click on import, and we're going to get taken down to our family farm, and I'm actually sat just there right now. So this is the land cover and hedge data for the RPA, and so all I'm going to do to now start creating this UK habitat map is firstly create a BPS. So all you need to do is click Create Project, Basic Payment Scheme. It copies the data from the core RPA data onto the BPS, and then we can simply say, well, look, these 3 fields, holding down Shift, they're not a permanent grassland, they actually happen to be in maize, or whatever it might be. And you can do quite granular designs, and you can sort of split fields, and, you know, we could say that this one's actually in you know, potatoes. And as you're mapping this all out, behind the scenes, 3 vertical dots in table view, you can see a full table view of the BPS. Unfortunately, just at the moment, you can't submit this data to the RPA. It's something we're certainly looking into. And this information, otherwise, you can export out into Excel. So just click of a button, it exports out into Excel. So really, it's as quick as that to produce farm maps for farms or estates. The piece I wanted to really show you, though, is this UK habitat classification. So I'm going to duplicate the information onto the UK habitat template, which we built in with Jen and her wonderful team at FWAG Southwest, working closely with Ordnance Survey. So I've just copied this to the UK habitat framework, and I'm just going to show you here essentially the way that UK Hab works, touching on what Jen's slide showed earlier. You can choose parcels of land, change the feature details, and here the way the UK Hab works is you get the different major segments. So I did say this is in cropland, and you can either choose cropland as the simplest way of attributing the land, or you can go into more and more granular detail. So here you can see all the more granular detail. I won't go into too much further information. So as to other cereal crops, so another layer of detail in. And you can do that for all the other features. So hit down at the bottom, we've got 2 woodland blocks. So take those and we can put those into a woodland plan. Now, as Jenny mentioned, we are looking to create a translator that automatically translates BPS or indeed countryside stewardship, which you can also create into a UK Hab. So just by the process of mapping the land, you instantaneously have your UK Hab defined. And then the software, not only does it produce the table view, but in an estate report just here, it summarizes essentially how the land is being used. So here's the BPS and current land use, and you can see where I added in the maize and the potatoes. And down at the bottom here, we've got the UK Hab. So again, it starts to give you the definition of how the land is being used. You can use the software for a whole series of other things, including land registry titles. We provide full access to all sorts of different overlay data sets, triple SIs, public rights of way, NVZ, green belt. We also have here provisional agricultural land classification. So again, just trying to make life as easy as possible for land managers to start producing the plans that you need. The software is also collaborative like Google Docs, and I'll try and add as many of you into this as collaborators, so you're able to come in and view this map. I know a lot of you are already Land App users, so you'll just see it pop up into your dashboard. So please feel free to create an account, come in and play and click around and see it for yourself. And you can also produce land reg compliant plans. But probably the 2 pieces are UK Hab really touches on what Jen was saying, and we've worked very closely with her to build this in. And this summarized report could feed into the harmonized metrics, which Adele was talking about. So by the process of doing your mapping, actually a lot of that framework is already filled out. So we're looking to work closely with the Sustainable Food Trust over the coming months to build that function into the software as well. So anyway, Land App is all entirely free. Please feel free to play around to your heart's content. We're here to support. We provide full support through working hours. So yeah, look forward to hearing how you get on. And that is that from me. Brilliant. Well, with all that being done, we now have the Q&A session. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you everybody for participating during those sessions. They're really interesting. We've had quite a lot of good questions that have flown in, which has been great. So Jenny, if I could start with you, if that's okay. There's clearly with all this, the information gathering is absolutely essential. Having a consistent approach on the ground is also really important. Do you think that the coding structure that you've come up with goes far enough? I mean, should for example, it include soil organic matter? Should it touch on air quality, water quality, things like that?
So at the moment that we've been working with the developers of the UK habitat mapping, and it can still be further developed. So Bill Butcher and his team have been amazing, and actually we feel that as part of a consultation that as it gets used more, we've already found things that we would like to add into it. I think the soil question is one that always comes up, and that's the one that we all want to crack, isn't it? I mean, and there's lots of ways that we're trying to do that. So my colleague Joe is running a trial with the Duchy College, with Becky Wilson, also with Hutchinson's, looking at whether scanners can sort of like complement other sort of ways of assessing soil organic matter. I think that with the huge support of CH and Rothamsted, that if it is going to get cracked, I think we've got some of the right partners to help us crack it, and it is an ambition, and obviously we're just part of a partnership, and anybody who's doing work in this area that feels that it could be contributing, or they could be contributing their expertise to the questions, then please do come forward, because we are trialling it, but there's always more to do with soil because it's such a complex thing to crack.
Brilliant, thank you. And one question's come in as to whether DEFRA are kind of truly on board with this direction of travel, and particularly, are we confident that DEFRA are going to be advocating the wider use of the UK habitat classification?
I think it's too early to say that at the moment, but I think that we did a presentation yesterday to all of the advice thematic working groups from DEFRA. Obviously I'm on the Arms Advisory Board. I'm lucky enough to be able to present this thinking, but I think that what we've learned is that the drivers through the Environment Act to deliver local nature recovery strategies and net gain is going to happen any rate, and that local authorities are going to have to produce local nature recovery strategies. We've learned from Wildlife Trust and lots of people trying to deliver nature recovery networks that will probably blend into those, that the data is out of date and difficult and disparate, and that UK HAB offers an opportunity for them. And lots of wildlife trusts and people have now translated their NRMs into UK HAB. I think what we're trying to make the case for, and DEFRA I think see from the presentations that we've done, is that we want Elm to be more ambitious, as I said, than just an agri-environment scheme. We must protect our farming industry, and to do that we need to create a role that is valuable for society, for farmers to make their contribution, other than of food that we obviously vitally need as well. But actually we think that this is a platform, and DEFRA certainly haven't ruled it out, but we're only one of 40 trials, but we have been given a lot of platform to be able to share. So we can only, if you think it's a good idea and we come together to support it, then that would be great. If you've got questions and queries about it, then obviously we'll try and take those on board and listen to how it might be further adapted. But DEFRA certainly haven't said no. I hope they're listening.
Brilliant, thanks, Jen. Thank you. Adele, just moving on to your side. Gareth asked, what future do you see for regenerative farming methods and the local supply chains?
That's a very good question. I think it's very relevant right now. I see a massive future, to be honest, and I think the more transparency we can get into the supply chain, with farmers collecting information on things like soil health, on carbon footprinting, on water quality, and hopefully that information can be sort of sent through the supply chain to consumers, so that they, like I said at the beginning, they can really vote with their buying power about what they want to buy. And I do think consumers are starting to sort of think more about the circular economy, making sure they buy things with lower food miles, let's say, although, obviously food miles is a slightly tricky one sometimes, but and carbon footprinting is a really big one. So I think if farmers can demonstrate that they have the sustainability credentials which are better, I think we can find mechanisms to communicate that through to consumers, and I think that's really exciting for the future of regenerative agriculture and local supply chains.
Julia made the point that including cultural heritage is really important, particularly in national parks and AONBs and common land as well. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think cultural heritage, things like public access and rights of way, even going as far as like rewarding farmers for doing things like school visits and Open Farm Sunday, which LEAF organises. I think we need the kind of social aspect of farming and community aspect of farming and cultural aspect has slightly been left out of the conversation until now, and I think it's just as important as the other things, to be honest.
Yeah, and one question, it's really for both of you, I suppose. Jenny, you're recommending an annual habitat map submission, and Adele, yours is a sustainable farm audit. Do you think these are competing asks, or are we going to be? Are they going to be complementary?
No, we've been talking all the way through, and we think they're complementary, don't we, Adele? I mean, I think that's sufficient. In fact, some of our farmers are going to be involved in both, and probably have been involved in both already. But no, I think I think they're definitely complementary. I mean, obviously, you know, underpinning all the stuff that we're trying to do is regenerative agriculture, and actually promote and make farmers more resilient to climate change. With, you know, they're finding it harder to farm because of climate. And actually, I think that feeds in really well. A lot of the discussions and the shared learning that we're having is very much about sustainability of soils and how to do that. And there's some really interesting things that link in that we've learned quite recently. As I said, we've linked into the the food strategy for Gloucestershire. And one thing that came out quite recently that was really interesting is something called dynamic procurement systems that they're trying to promote. And I think that would work really well and fit really well with Sustainable Food Trust ambitions, because it's about trying to keep the money that we will have or won't have after coronavirus in our local systems, and actually making sure that if we have money, that it's cycled back in the circular economy, as Adele said. So I think they're complementary.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we haven't done is the techie amazing mapping stuff that FWAG and the Land Up do. So I think if we can link the sustainability metrics and measures into a mapping system and a local farm plan, I think that would be amazing. So I think they're totally complementary.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you both. For those questions that we didn't get around to answering, we have got a note of them, and what we're going to do is we'll try and put some of the answers, I think, Tim, on the website. So thank you. And that's all from me, and I'll hand over to Tim.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time out today. Hopefully this has been incredibly useful and instructive, and this is really the start in a conversation that we hope to continue over the next 11 weeks. All of the information, as I mentioned before, that we've captured, to the videos and the Slido results and even the questions here, we'll make all of it available afterwards. So you'll be expecting an email over the next few days. And please, just continue to feel free to share this with other people, open it up, because this is really a conversation, and we're really, we're all trying to work it out together. So it's a real pleasure to be on the journey with you all, and hopefully we can all, add as much value up to DEFRA and to the market as possible. So yeah, thank you so much for taking time today. I hope you will have a wonderful long weekend. Stay safe, enjoy the good weather, and look forward to seeing you all at next week's webinar.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Take care. Thank you, Del. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Matthew. Bye.
Thank you.